Thursday was an off day for the New York Yankees after they finished the series against the Detroit Tigers. They dropped the series 2-1, but they're 7-5 on the season. And, I thought today would be a good reset day. Obviously, tonight they will play the San Francisco Giants back home at Yankee Stadium. But, given the off day on Thursday, I figured it's probably a good time just to kind of reset. Let's analyze. Yeah, that's the right word. Analyze. That would be the word I'm looking for here. Analyze how things have gone through the first 12 games. Let's take kind of a look at some of the stats of key players. And we'll spend a little bit more time talking about the very back end of the bullpen. Thursday's show, I spent a good portion of the second half of the podcast talking about Devin Williams, his early struggles, Yankees fans' feelings about him versus Luke Weaver, and we'll talk about that a little bit more on this podcast. But I figured it's kind of a good time to sit back and look at some of the guys and how they have done so far. And, 4 Yankees have played all 12 games, or played in at least all 12 games this season. Anthony Volpe and Aaron Judge, Paul Goldschmidt, who had a pinch hit opportunity, where he came into the game and was immediately walked. So he technically hasn't started all 12 games. And Jazz Chisholm. And so let's kind of take a look at where everybody is, how the start to the season has gone for each of these players. Obviously, 12 games is a small sample size. That is the equivalent of 7.4% of the season. So still very early for a number of things, but let's talk about the captain, Aaron Judge, who is off to a torrid start to the season himself. In his 48 at-bats to open the year, 17 hits, including 9 extra base hits, 6 home runs, 14 runs scored, 20 runs batted in. Has a couple steals as well, which is really encouraging to kind of see. I know one of them was, but I think maybe both of them were on the back end of a double steal, if I'm not mistaken. We've seen the Yankees do a few more double steals early in the season than we've seen before, but he's off to obviously a great start. OPS 1238, on base percentage near 450. I mean, look, this is leaps and bounds ahead of where he was last March and April. Not that you really had any concerns, considering how just generational is probably the only way you can even describe it at this point. But just an absolute monster start to the season. He has been really, really strong, and I'm glad to see him have the success that he's had early on, because he starts to open up some, again, health permitting, some really interesting things as the season goes along. Like, there are a few players around Major League Baseball that you look at and say, if everything goes right, we're going to be talking about all-time seasons or all-time records or things of that nature. And Aaron Judge is one of those players. And so far, pretty darn good through the first dozen games of the season. Next up on the home run list is probably a little bit of a surprising name. We didn't necessarily expect him to be number 2, tied for second on the Yankees in most home runs through the first 4 series of the season. And that's Anthony Volpe. Shortstop, clubbed 4 home runs so far this season. 7 of his 11 hits this year have gone for extra bases. And it's been a little bit up and down at the plate for him. He's got more strikeouts than hits right now, which is obviously not ideal, but he's still drawing his walks. He's hitting for more power early than we had thought. And obviously, he's a guy that displayed some power, particularly his rookie year, but he sacrificed a lot of contact to make that happen. So we're kind of trying to still figure out, like, who is the real Anthony Volpe at the plate? Like, what is the real batting profile for him? And I think we still don't know yet, and we're not going to know 12 games into a season, but I'm glad to see him having at least some of that power, particularly the opposite way, which we've seen a couple times this year as well. It is a good sign for him going forward. But at the moment, strikeouts have been a little bit of an issue. He's got caught on both his steal attempts so far this year, including one at third base. It's been kind of what you expect from him. Defensively, he's been as good as you can ask for. Won a Gold Glove as a rookie, and has had a Gold Glove caliber first 12 games to start the season. But he's hitting for enough power, and, again, you would like to see the strikeouts come down a little bit, but that just might be who he is as a player. But again, so far, so good. Not going to panic about the strikeouts early. But, look, he's giving you great defense at shortstop. He's giving you some power. He's drawing his get You can't ask for a lot more than what he's giving you to start the year. And if he can keep up this pace, turn a few more of those strikeouts into balls in play, I think he'll be off to a really good season ahead, and probably a career season, if we're being honest. And brings me to the next guy who really had a great run to end last year and got off to a really hot start, but cooled down considerably in this Detroit series, and that's Jazz Chisholm Jr. He's got 4 home runs on the year. 6 of his 9 hits are for extra bases, but he has cooled considerably. His average has dipped down to 180. His OBP is under 260 now. Does have 4 steals. Does have 4 homers. Strikeouts have been an issue. 21 strikeouts so far in his 50 at bats, to only 3 walks. That's a bit concerning. He's been pretty vocal about not enjoying playing in the cold, and obviously I don't think anybody really enjoys it. But he's been pretty vocal about it. Want to see a little bit of a turnaround. It's been a tale of a few different series for Jazz. It's tough to kind of evaluate where he fully sits right now, because you start to look at what he was able to do against Milwaukee. He hits, goes 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts in that first game, but then he hits 3 home runs over the next 2 games of that series. Then he has some strikeouts early in the Diamondback series, hits a big home run in the finale there. But it's been a problem. He has struck out multiple times in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the 12 games this year, and only has 1 game with no strikeouts. So that is an issue. And obviously strikeouts have been an issue for the Yankees in this road trip as a whole. We talked about it a bunch on this podcast, but he's going to really cut that down because his strikeout to walk ratio right now and his strikeout to at bat ratio is just sky high. So that's something I'm hoping that he will correct here in this Giants series. Next up is Ben Rice. And I don't know how you can not be impressed with Ben Rice so far. 3 home runs, and 2 of them off lefties, which is really, really encouraging, off of lefty relievers. Tied with Aaron Judge for the team lead in walks. Currently has an OPS over 1,000. And he has been scattering hits. He's got 6 of his 11 hits are extra base hits with 2 doubles, a triple, 2 home runs. 2 doubles, a triple, and 3 home runs. I don't know how you cannot be impressed by what he's done so far. He is hitting the ball. If you take a look, if you want a good laugh, go look at his StatCast on Baseball Savant. Go look at his numbers. They're wild. Like, he is hitting the ball like a freaking monster. There's so much bright red, which in this case is good. On his Baseball Savant chart, it looks like it's Judge or Stanton or one of those elite power hitters. It's incredible what he's been able to do so far this season. And he's providing a really interesting piece for them, because we've seen a lot of, we've seen that 1 game of Austin Wells at the top of the lineup. We've seen, Paul Goldschmidt up at the top of the lineup considerably, and we'll talk about him in a second. But we're also seeing Ben Rice at the top of the lineup. And I will be honest with you, I did not expect that to be a possibility, or quite frankly, something that would be working, if you asked me that in spring. And he has really transformed himself as a hitter, as a player, physically, mentally, preparation-wise. And again, it's early. He's played 11 of the 12 games to start the year. You don't want to make any gross declarations. Again, you are, 7.4% of the way into the season. But every single sign from Ben Rice, from the second he got on the field in spring training to right now on April 11th, has been nothing but overwhelmingly positive. So I'm excited to see what he can continue to do back on this homestand and beyond. And we'll see if he gets behind the plate at all. That's going to be the key, because, as good of a story as J.C. Escara is, he doesn't provide you any value with the bat, and he's probably not going to. So if Ben Rice can somehow, particularly when, Stanton gets healthy and comes back in the lineup at DH, if Ben Rice can just be serviceable behind the plate, he's going to open himself up to some more opportunities if he's Wells' backup and he's Paul Goldschmidt's backup and he's Giancarlo Stanton's backup. Just, again, open up more pathways to play. Speaking about being behind the plate, Austin Wells, had the leadoff home run to start the season, but it's been a little bit of a struggle since then. 2 home runs, 5 RBIs. He's got 4 extra base hits of his 7 total hits, but he's hitting below the Mendoza line now. He is below 280 in the on-base percentage, and he's hovering right around the 700 OPS mark. Another guy that's just been, it's interesting how first impressions could change things. And I'm a big Austin Wells fan. He's been really good behind the plate. He's called some really good games. He's excellent framer, has shown some power, and I do think these numbers are going to come around here as he gets a little bit more comfortable and as the weather warms up a bit. But I think there would be a really interesting conversation about the way Austin Wells' bat has been playing if he didn't have that highly publicized leadoff home run to open up the season against Milwaukee. Because since that moment, he only has 6 hits in his next 36 at-bats. And 10 of those at-bats were strikeouts. So he had that big moment, and obviously everybody got excited, and then he hasn't really hit in the leadoff spot since and hasn't really hit well since. So nothing to worry about, nothing I'm panicking on, but it is something to monitor because I do feel like we would be having a different conversation about his start to the season if it wasn't for that leadoff home run. Cody Bellinger as well is interesting because he looked so good in that Milwaukee series, and he has cooled down considerably since. And you hope that it's just a little bit of a cold streak, or you hope it's just the cold weather and that his back isn't bothering him. I know he only missed, he missed a couple games with the back. He missed 1 game with bad wings. So he's only played 9 of the 12 games to start the season. But, after starting what felt like so hot and playing in key moments, obviously he was part of that, historic 3 home runs and 3 pitches barrage that the Yankees had. But you take a look at what he did this year. He went in the first 2 games of the year, he went 4 for 7 with a home run and 6 RBIs. And 5 RBIs. Since then, he has gone 3 for 27 with no extra base hits, 1 RBI, 10 strikeouts and 3 walks in 31 plate appearances. So he, again, this is another guy that a little bit like Austin Wells, that those first couple games of the season completely kind of changed everybody's like, okay, he's off to a really good start. And it hasn't been that good of a start since. So somebody else I want to see get back on track now that the Yankees are coming back home. Jason Dominguez, obviously the star prospect for the Yankees, and he has been for some time. It's been up and down from him. I think he's been solid enough in the field. He's a below average fielder. Let's not pretend like he isn't. But he just needs to not be a disaster out there. And he has been below average by all the defensive metrics early on in left field, but he hasn't been a disaster and hasn't really cost the Yankees much. He also got off to a little bit of a slow start in that Milwaukee series. He was one of really the only players that didn't have a great series hitting against Milwaukee, and came back with a much better performances against Arizona and Pittsburgh before going 0 for 6 and getting an off day against the Tigers. So this is one of those ones where it's early enough in the season. He has a 3-hit day. His average and all his peripheral numbers are going to go right back up. So far, solid. Nothing. Not spectacular. Not oh my god. Not terrible. Perfectly fine. And I hope to see more from him as the season goes on. But he's not somebody that I would be overly concerned about at this juncture. Paul Goldschmidt. I mean, if I would have told you he'd lead the team in hits right now, he's batting almost 400, and it's been a real catalyst for this team. Obviously, he's mashing lefties, and he's mashed lefties throughout his career, and he mashed lefties even last year on his quote-unquote down season, but he's hitting everybody right now. And for somebody that's never hit in the leadoff spot, he's gotten a lot of time in that leadoff spot this year and is having plenty of success. Only 4 of his 18 hits are extra bases, but he's finding a way to get on base. He's not striking out. The only guy that has struck out less than him, that's I would guess a everyday starter, for lack of a better phrase, would be Trent Grisham, even though, he's just been everything you've hoped from him. So I'm excited to kind of see him continue to grow going forward, and he'll be a tremendous value deal for the Yankees when we look back at it if he continues to even play half as well as he's played so far. And then as we start to look at some of the other hitters, not a ton. Oswaldo Cabrera's been fine. His splits look fine. Well, I should say his batting average or OBP splits. I mean, he's slugging 308. Like, he hasn't had an extra base hit this year. He's gotten subbed out on some of these games as well. So, we'll see how that ends up going for him going forward. But I'm excited to see what they do at third base. I feel like that's the spot that's going to get, well, and starting pitching clearly, which we'll talk about in a second. But third base is going to be the spot where we really look throughout the summer of, okay, are the Yankees going to go out and get somebody for this spot? We'll find out. Heading over to the pitchers, let's talk about the starters for a moment. We heaped praise upon him on the last podcast, but he absolutely deserved it, and that's Max Fried. Through 3 starts, 2-0, 1.56 ERA, a 21-3 strikeout to walk ratio. Batters are hitting under 250 against him. Really, really solid. Really, really solid start to the season. So, looks every bit as good as the player that they signed. It was a dominant force against Detroit in a game they had to win. And so that is incredibly encouraging and just a great addition. And again, any pitcher, he's going to have his ups and downs, but so far so good. Looks like a monster guy at the top of the rotation, and he's going to have to be since Garrett Cole's not coming back. The rest of the rotation has been an issue, and it's not an exciting one. Carlos Rodon, it's been bad. Walks have been an issue. Actually, walks have been his biggest issue. Like, he only has 11 hits allowed in his 17 and a third innings pitched. The problem is he has 9 walks. Like, that's been the big issue for him, is that he is just giving up the free pass. He's given out 3 home runs already so far this year. He's actually limited hits. If you watch him, he's limited hits fairly well. It's just one of 2 things seems to be happening with him. He loses control with walks and then gives up the homer. And what do I take away from that? Hell if I know. Look, he just isn't. He isn't the guy that he was in San Francisco. He hasn't been. He hasn't been at any point in his Yankee tenure. He's had stretches where he's looked like that. But, at this point, he looks like a guy that should be a back end of the rotation starter, and who the Yankees are going to have to rely on to be their number 2 starter. And it's unfortunate. And this is another area the Yankees are going to absolutely need to address in the offseason. Marcus Stroman, not good. Just hasn't been good. He's made 2 starts and hasn't even got 9 innings combined. Again, somebody that they didn't want to open the season in their rotation and were forced to put him in. He has not lived up to it. Will Warren's only got 2 starts under his belt, 9 innings pitched, 6 earned. I mean, it's been a mixed bag for him. He has some innings where he looks dominant and then innings where he just loses it. And he's a young guy, and he's probably about a year away from being somebody that you would feel comfortable making 30 starts for you. But like Stroman and like Rodon, out of necessity, he's going to be out there. Want to see a little bit more of him before I make any sort of analysis. Like, we've seen a lot more of Rodon in a Yankees uniform. We've seen a lot more of Marcus Stroman in a Yankees uniform, and just in the league in general to kind of know what they are as players. Would like to see a little bit more from Will Warren before I make any true declarations about where I feel like he is for this season. And then Cookie Carrasco, great spring training story, hasn't carried over so far, and I would be surprised if he's on the roster in May. Let's be honest. This is feeling like a DFA situation when Schmidt and or Heel are back and ready to go. I don't see them moving him to the bullpen, and I haven't seen anything so far through his 3 total games, his 2 starts and his 1 relief appearance that makes you say you need to, especially when you have a bullpen situation right now where you don't have guys with options outside of Fernando Cruz. I don't see a situation where he's going to be on the team much longer. So we won't spend too much time on him. And then other than that, let's talking about the bullpen a little bit. Has overall, I thought, been pretty solid. They've had some blow-ups. They've had some bad moments. But I feel like overall, it has been solid, particularly at the back end of the bullpen, except for one man. And we'll talk about that to end this podcast. But, Ian Hamilton looked good in his first appearance back in that Detroit series. You're going to see a lot of Adam Ottavino getting up, DFA'd, released, re-signed, DFA'd, released, re-signed. He's from New York. The Yankees already paid some of his upfront signing bonus from when they signed him the first time. He seems to be cool with the situation. So we're going to probably see that a couple more times. Mark Leiter had that one bad outing, but I feel like since then has been really strong, and he was the one that actually they called in to mop up and save the game from Devin Williams' blow-up in that finale against Detroit. Tim Hill has been, again, one bad outing, but otherwise pretty solid. Luke Weaver has been dominant. Brett Hedrick has been dominant. I expect him back up very soon. Fernando Cruz had, again, one bad outing, but otherwise looked pretty good. Yoendrys Gomez has been a revelation, a guy that probably just made the roster because of his option situation. And, they haven't used him in like major high leverage moments, but he's been good with the opportunities that he has been given. Ryan Yarbrough hasn't been good. And again, he was kind of like the last lefty in the pen. We'll see what his future is with the team. But the last guy I want to talk about before we wrap things up here is Devin Williams and kind of relive that conversation because it's been rough for him. We went over his game log. We don't need to kind of reiterate that. I would strongly encourage you to listen to yesterday's podcast, particularly at the end, to kind of see what we talked about. But it's not, there's something not clicking right now. And it's too early. You're not giving up on anybody after 4 games and 3 innings pitched. But he doesn't look like the same player that he was the last 5 seasons in Milwaukee. He doesn't look like, I guess technically 6 if you count his 13-inning rookie, his 13-inning debut season. But he doesn't look like the same pitcher. He doesn't look as confident. He is walking more guys than you would like. I mean, he only walked 11 guys in 21 innings last year. Obviously, he missed some time, but he's already walked 4 guys in 3 innings. Like, this is a guy that is pretty much average, like a half a walk an inning type of a thing. So 4.5 per 9, and he's over a walk an inning right now. Again, it's early. These can happen, but it's just not. It hasn't been encouraging, and there is a lot of hand-wringing from Yankees fans. There is a lot of people there are a lot of people that are upset. They feel like Luke Weaver earned that job, and you come in, you bring in this high-priced free agent, talking about beards, talking about all this other stuff, and he comes out and he's flopped so far. So this is going to be a really big series for him against the San Francisco Giants when he gets his opportunities to come in, because as I stated in the last podcast, I think he's one more bad performance away from Aaron Boone starting to give other guys like Weaver that first crack. I'm not saying forever, not saying like he'll lose the closer job the rest of the season, but I think he's got one more shot at being the okay, you're the no-brainer coming in the 9th. Otherwise, I think others are going to get that opportunity. So we will see how the San Francisco series goes. I'm looking forward to the Yankees hopefully getting off to a strong start in that series. They will have Marcus Stroman on the mound against Robbie Ray. So they're going to be, they're going to be facing a lefty right out of the gate again. The Yankees are going to have to deal with a lot of lefties all year long. Mostly out of the bullpen, but they're going to get one in the starter here. And, the Giants are hot. They're 9-3. Their offense is looking really good right now. They just scored 8 runs in their most recent game after getting shut out 2 games in a row. But, you want to look at what they've been able to do so far this season, and particularly so far in their last, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, in the last 7 games. They have 27, what it would be, 33 runs in the last 7 games. And I know they got shut out. That's nothing crazy, but they did get shut out twice by the Reds. So, I mean, if you look at what they were able to do in those other starts, they've been putting up big numbers. 10 runs here, 6 runs here, 7 runs here. So we'll see what they're able to do offensively against Marcus Stroman. And, the Yankees are just going to need something from him, man. Like, this version of Stroman has not been good. And I don't think it's going to get better, but it just can't kill him. That's all they're hoping for in this. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll be back here on the Bombers Beat podcast to talk about it all.